and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, get on our website, shalomklein.com. You can download the podcast from Get Down to Business and check out who's going to be up next week on the Get Down to Business radio show. Remember, you can dial in to Get Down to Business on our dial-in line. It's 312-642-5600. You can also tweet your questions at Shalom Klein. This week, we're talking a lot about small business, as always, but we're talking about family businesses, which is something that our next guest, Cathy Carroll, knows a thing or two about. Cathy Carroll is with Legacy Onward. And Cathy, thanks for joining us on Get Down to Business. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Shalom.
Thanks, Cathy. So family businesses, you've got quite a story. This isn't just a job for you. This is something you've been living, it sounds like, all of your life and perhaps maybe many years before that, too.
You got that right, yeah. I'm actually the grandchild of an entrepreneur who lived the American dream the old way. He put himself through college and made quite a success for himself, which has been an interesting experience. So as a G3, I saw many of the joys of family business, and I saw many of the pains of family business. And as a result, I ended up choosing a very corporate path for about 20 years until my father sucked me back in 2009. And in 2009, I joined him and led a turnaround of his family business that he had started, which is actually a separate group of companies. Had a terrific experience doing that. Left that to do my own thing. Knew I wanted to get into executive coaching at one point and decided to go to a training program at Georgetown. And in the course of that program, I realized, oh my gosh, family businesses really need access to this stuff. And I bring a unique distinction to coaching. So I started an executive coaching service.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you really can't get away. And most importantly, you're sharing advice that will help other family businesses here in the Chicagoland area, and it sounds like really around the country, succeed in business, because we all know that there's no one magic formula or recipe to success in business. You need advice from folks like Cathy Carroll. So, Cathy, we're thrilled that you're on the show, and we're looking forward to learning from you. Listeners of Get Down to Business, remember, you can dial in and ask Cathy your questions at 312-642-5600, or, of course, tweet your questions at Shalom Klein. So, Cathy, what's it like to work in a family business? Is it hard, stressful, or is it all fun and games?
All of the above. It can be incredibly rewarding. It's really, really fulfilling to be able to create fun opportunities with family. It's an incredibly special experience. And at the same time, it's incredibly challenging, because when you mix family with money, you pretty much get the apex of emotion. And that can be very, very complicated when you're trying to make business decisions, because emotion just disrupts your executive functions and makes it very difficult to thrive and make good decisions.
It's tough, and I can only imagine what goes on in the corporate boardroom. It's a little bit different than what you might imagine. It's you've got all the baggage that you're dealing with from home that's following you into work every single day. So, Cathy, what's let's start with some advice. What advice can you share with folks that are in a family business currently? And hopefully we'll talk some more about, the advantages to starting a family business and the advice that you have perhaps for future owners of businesses like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best advice I can give is probably the hardest one to follow, and that is to communicate. Leadership is a challenge in a family business, and when a family business leader is facing decisions that involve decisions as a business leader and as a family leader, sometimes the decisions are in conflict. For example, if you've got a child or a nephew who's really struggling to perform in a family business, in a business world, if you're in a corporate environment, the decision is usually very easy to let that person go. But when you're a parent or an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent, it's a much more complicated decision, because your instinct is to care for and protect the people that are in your family. So it makes those kinds of business challenges very difficult, and the more you communicate, the better it is. I also highly recommend getting really clear on what the values of the business and the family are, and getting alignment on the direction that it's going. And those require communication skills, which are difficult sometimes to find, because it gets so emotional, as I said earlier.
Fantastic. Cathy, we actually have a guest on the air. David from Evanston is calling in. David, welcome to Get Down to Business.
Thank you, Shalom. I love your show. It's great listening to you every Sunday. I just want to compliment your host, your guest, I mean. I think running a small business in this day and age is very hard to do, and I'm glad to see that she's willing to take the risk, and small businesses are the backbone of our community. So I just want to compliment her.
And most certainly is, David. Thanks for calling in, and continue listening to Get Down to Business. Cathy, it is hard to run a small business, and certainly the challenges, I think, are multiplied when you're dealing with the personalities, as you said, of family businesses, the stress that goes on. So communication, you said, is a key component to success. What advice would you have for our friends out there? Let's say it's John Doe who's out there in Elmhurst that's trying to decide. His son's in college, and certainly he could go the corporate path. Would you recommend John to start up a family business and bring his son into the business, or should he just go the typical route of hiring somebody, posting an ad on Career Builder, and just seeing who he can get?
Oh, the answer to that is a big fat it depends. It really depends on the goals of the family, the goals of the father, the goals of the son, how compatible they are. When you're a family business leader and you're leading any business, whether it's family business or not business, it's really important to have clear alignment on a long-term vision. And as individual members of a family, it's also really important to know what our individual life purposes are. It's hard to blend those two when they are not necessarily clearly understood. So getting clear understanding of what the family business goals are, and then getting clear understanding of what the business leader's life purposes and what the son's life purposes is really the foundation for making decisions going forward.
And Cathy, it sounds like your story is the story of a lot of the folks that I know out in the community as well. Many people, as a kid, I always said there is no way I'm ever ending up in my family business. But that said, I was the only kid in third grade that had a budget. So I guess I was doomed to end up somehow in our family's accounting firm. And, I went off like you in my own directions, and then sort of came back full circle. And I think that's the story. So the advice that I have for folks out there is never say never. Never rule anything out. You never know where life's going to take you. And as you said, if you're able to communicate and you're able to there will always be speed bumps along the road. And if you're able to weather those storms, and there's guaranteed, like in any business, to be some conflict. Everybody who has a job, everybody who's been in business has had some level of conflict. If you're able to weather those storms and you're able to sort of work to try to get past that speed bump and move on, it's certainly a worthwhile course for small businesses that are out there. So, Cathy, do you have any success stories? Any feel free to use names or not use names, but stories of a family business that you've been able to work with and really help them resolve issues and help them be successful in business?
Yeah, I sure do. I've got a few good stories. I guess one that's a great example of a success story would be a client who's a fifth-generation family business leader of a manufacturing business here in town. And 5 generations in the United States is actually a lot of generations for a successful family business. He's a terrific client, and we're really focused, interestingly enough, on communication and also on getting clear on what his long-term goals are and whether they're compatible with the needs of the business going forward. But it's an exciting part to be a part of that family's growth. What I've also seen as great success stories is as generations progress, the challenges start to morph and change over time. So when you start a family business, you end up with a parent and a child situation. But then when you start to move into they call them cousin consortiums, the challenges then get very complicated, and it's very common for children to maintain loyalties with their parents. But what I've seen very successful is when children start to band together as a generation. So their loyalty is to their generation,
Sure.
not necessarily to their family lineage.
So, Cathy, we've got about 30 seconds remaining. Cathy, how can people get in touch with Legacy Onward and get some of your advice for family businesses?
Oh, that's very generous. My website is legacyonward.com. My phone number is 312-852-4666. 1254. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but legacyonward.com is a great place to start, LEGACYONWARD.com.
Thanks for the advice. Get Down to Business is brought to you in part by Everett Wealth Solutions, a registered investment advisor and financial planning firm, a fiduciary advisor that helps you create your personal wealth. You can find them at everettwealthsolutions.com or call 708-771-7777. Remember, you can visit my website, shalomklein.com, to download podcasts from Get Down to Business and find out about our guests next week. After the break, more Get Down to Business.